Okay, when we're going to face some medium pace bowling in those middle overs, it's really important to try and mimic the pace, the bounce, the speed, and also maybe even try and mimic the dibble-dobble that's going to come at you. The reason why is to mimic the situation in the game and make it in some ways harder. So one of the things that you're going to encounter in a game is going to be the odd player that's coming from a height. If I was going from a height, and for example, we know a lot of the players in our competition, so what we'd want to do is come from a height, I would use this. A lot of players can actually be really quite crafty at moving the ball in and out using this particular item. So that's one way that you can do that. You feed real balls into here, you make sure that the seam goes into the top. If you're inexperienced at it, please be sparing in how much you do it because it can waste a lot of your time. Maybe do it in the nets or something like that before you go and do it one-on-one, because otherwise you can be wasting your time. Another way that we can do this is by using tennis balls and taping them up. We can also have seam tennis balls and make the seams really, really thick, which will make the ball move more and more consistently. So that's another way that we can mimic that. If that's a particular weakness for you, then maybe you can bring those in. Or if you bat in the middle overs, so if you're in the middle or lower order and you're going to bat in the middle to late overs, then it's really, really important for you to have that skill. I'm going to feed Boggy a few balls now. I'm going to do it using this bat. I'm going to use it as a paddle, and I'm going to paddle the balls onto our catch-it ramp. Now the catch-it ramp is going to mimic two things. It's going to mimic variable bounce, and it's going to mimic variable movement off the bounce, not just in the air. Okay, and there's an important distinction there because we all know that you can have movement in the air or movement off the seam, and it's very difficult to mimic that off the seam movement with our training because of course not everyone has new balls and the wickets aren't always what we need them to be to practice that particular skill. So this is something where you can consistently do it all the time. Now make sure that the catch-it ramp is on the bouncing area, not too far back, not too far forward, because otherwise we're not going to get the actual mimicking that we desire. So basically, if we can get him to be a little bit confused, if we can get him to have to work hard, then the drill's probably worthwhile. If we're seeing the drill go to pot and it's not really doing what we need it to do, or it's so inconsistent that it's wasting our time, maybe best to cut it and try something new. But overall, that can be really, really useful. Something else that you can add to it, so now I'm just going to do a normal feed. And obviously I'm a left arm over the wicket bowler, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, Boggy, on the weekend, we're going to be facing a left arm over the wicket bowler. He tends to bowl from overs 20 all the way through, and what we want to do is try and work out how we're going to score off him because he has really good fields, he has the ring field to keep her up, and what we want to do is make sure that we have the skills and the problem-solving process necessary to make sure that we conquer him on the weekend. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to feed balls, we're going to feed these nice light ones because they're going to hold up in the air a little bit. Even if I feed hard, they're still going to hold up, and they're not going to crack as nicely off the bat. So he's going to have to work really hard to hit that ball hard. Therefore, we're going to concentrate on a couple of things. Number one, it's going to be getting in really good positions and timing the ball rather than smashing it with hard hands. And the second thing we're going to do is I've set out a couple of cones. As you can see over here, I've got some white cones on both sides of the wicket square, and I've got some orange cones on both sides of the wicket straight. The whole idea of having these in those particular positions and having them be colour-coded is so that me and Boggy can communicate as to what he's trying to do and when. What we want to do is work it out, and the thing is, I'm not going to tell him what I want him to do, but as we go along in this drill, what we would do is work out and say, okay, so the wider it is, the more I have to go through the white cones because they're wider, or whatever it is that works for him, okay? And there may be a particular zone where he struggles, or there may be a particular zone of strength. And when that happens, we really need to hone in on that and do as many feeds as we can and make sure that we have a really succinct plan that's going to be able to follow through on the weekend. And not only that, it gives him confidence. That's orange cone. Orange again. Interesting. So basically at the end of the day, we can tell him, do what you want, and then we'll give feedback. Or we can say, right, we're going to really target the orange cones, or we're really going to target the offside. Or I can feed at the stumps, just like this particular player might on the weekend. I'll feed hard at the stumps, and I'll say, right, I want you to target the orange and white on the offside because that's where the gaps are going to be. Or vice versa. This can be done for spin, this can be done for any type of bowling. So having those cones out, having a target will really help to focus the match play.